Good evening, Mike Haney with 60 Minutes in Black USA. Happy Kwanzaa, happy holidays. Hopefully, everyone has had a safe and enjoyable holiday. It is so good to be here, particularly today, as we get closer to the end of another year. Gives us a chance to look back and reflect on exactly what happened this year in our own lives and world events and national events, events around us. And so we have some very special guests this evening from across the country, Boston, Mass, Oakland, California, Baltimore, Maryland, that are going to talk about the year that we've had in Black USA and their perspective on it, and maybe talk a bit more about what we expect regarding next year. But a couple of current events that have happened today. Desmond Tutu, I don't know if you've heard Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa passed away today. Extraordinary man, extraordinary leader. I don't know if you recall when Nelson Mandela was jailed. It was Desmond Tutu that took the forefront of leading South Africa through apartheid. He didn't just deal with issues in South Africa. He dealt with issues around the globe. In 2009, President Obama gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Tutu's civil and human rights work led to prominent honors. Obama called Tutu a mentor, a friend, and a moral compass in a statement after his death. A man of extraordinary intelligence, integrity, and invincibility against the forces of apartheid. He was also tender and vulnerable in his compassion for those who had suffered oppression, injustice, and violence under apartheid and oppression and downtrodden people around the world. So, Desmond Tutu, rest in peace. Job well done. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But first, because this is such a special edition of 60 Minutes in Black USA, I have gotten a co host, a wonderful co host for one of our other programs on Black USA News Network. I've got Miss Nicole Orr from Sister Biz. And believe me, between Tamara and Nicole, any meeting, Nicole got chose. I don't know if that's a good thing. She'll let me know at the end of this program, but I figured you all get tired of me after 90 minutes. So we brought Nicole on. So let me bring Nicole on so we can get Nicole indoctrinated. Nicole, what's going on? Welcome to 60 Minutes in Black USA News. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. I
It is
got some
so
sleep.
good to see you.
Good. It's good to see you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to represent both Tamara and myself from Sister Biz. I even had some
Tamada,
sleep. 2 days
you
I
got some
slept.
sleep? So normally you don't get sleep, huh?
I don't. Before our show, I'd be tired, but I'm committed to giving the news, so I'm there.
Hey, well, that's fantastic. So tell viewers about Sister Biz. Tell them about Nicole. I know you're a consummate business professional. A person that does a multitude of different things. Tell our viewers about Nicole.
Pretty much. I'm a mom of two boys, and I'm a self entrepreneur. I was a former nurse. I still maintain my nursing license, but I do operate a business called ANC Pack and Ship. We are the only Black-owned multi-carrier shipping outlet in Baltimore City. We specialize in international and domestic shipping, from small packages to vehicles. We have some of the largest fulfillment contracts where we pack by the thousands
Hmm.
for a lot of marketing customers as well as seafood customers. So, second year in business, looking to do more.
Wow, this is
And
the second
so,
year you've been in business?
correct. Yes, it is. Yes, it
Wow,
is.
that is fantastic.
Yep. So going into our third, God willing, we have all of our government designations from MBE, DBE, SBE, WOSB. Look, we got them all.
Man, that
So,
sounds like some true CIA stuff. I'm not even going to ask what all that means, but hopefully, what it does, it culminates in some money. You know what I'm saying? So, wow.
yep. So it's exciting. It's definitely an exciting time. I host a show Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here on blackusa.com. And pretty much what happens is that myself and my co-host, we cover issues A lot of the issues do tend to focus in Baltimore City because this is where we are. But it's a lot of issues that pretty much are surrounding every urban city. So we just try to cover it, do the best we can, as well as bring like a business aspect to it. So
Yeah, well,
glad.
Nicole, that's right. You're absolutely right. Baltimore City is like Oakland, as Doug Art's going to tell us. It's like Boston. It's like Birmingham. It's like Mobile. It's like Miami. So we just want to make sure that we're sharing notes with each other so we understand because it's been a tremendous year. But let me ask you about your show. We're talking about this. We're talking about today significant events in our country in 2021, right? So you all have been on the air every Wednesday at 7 p.m. As you said, what was the most compelling guest that you've had this year that you figured really contribute to what Sister Biz is all about?
Whew, let me see. We've had some good ones. But for me, I would have to say Bell. Mr. Bell, former council president of Baltimore City, very informative. Then of course, Commissioner Ham, very informative. We just had Tim Allen. He's running for comptroller. I don't know. It's hard to choose. I mean, because
I
we've
hear
had
you.
some powerhouses. You know what I
I
mean?
hear
And
you.
they all gave us like little nuggets that was very informative, and they've
Well, I
all made
tell you,
a
as long as they weren't beef nuggets, because I did get a chance to attend one of your shows, although I watch your shows all the time, and probably the one that was very impressive to me is the lady that almost got me to stop eating a steak, man. You had a vegan young lady on there 2 weeks ago or so, and she was
Brenda.
describing stuff. She says, well, and I'm like, okay, okay. But when she got to the fish, and talked about the oceans, I said, "Oh no, see that's enough." I mean, I got it in terms of, sheep's milk belong to the sheep, cow's milk belong to the cows, mother's breast milk belongs to human mothers, and we need to kind of. I got all that, but when she told me that no longer could I eat a whiting sandwich, I said, you know what? Let me continue to pray on this. It's okay. But you guys have some wonderful shows, Nicole. But we have got some guests here today as we talk about this year in reflection, and I see David Murphy in the room
Okay.
already. So
Okay.
let's bring on Mr. Murphy into the stream. Mr. Murphy, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent.
Good to see you, Mr. Murphy.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Mr. Murphy, so we're talking about this year in reflection, but what you do is significant with the Black Unity newspaper, right? What's the Black Unity newspaper is about? Because Mr. Murphy is the publisher of that.
Okay, the best way I can explain the National Black Unity News is that first and foremost, it's a black publication that's our focus is on black people. Now, we don't put down any group or race of people. We just try to uplift our own because there's a disparity in this country. And so we just trying to equal the playing field. But the National Black Unity News is a quarterly periodical and is solution oriented. And one of the unique things about the publication is it's one of a kind. It's not traditional newspaper. We have, like I just mentioned, solution oriented information, but it's what you call a collaboration. We don't have what you call traditional editors, and from the top down, we have a collaboration of like-minded people who has come together not only to bring information in the publication, solution-oriented information that can uplift our people, but they also help finance the publication. So everybody has some stake, in the business. And but like I said, we have so many. We have about 40 something different editors in the publication, and it's a nationwide circulating, not only nationwide but and beyond. We are heavily into Africa and other countries, and we've been around for about 5 years, and we are just getting started.
Wow, wow. Well, let's
Wow.
get into it. Let's get into, and particularly as a publisher of a national, international publication, because we know community or communications in our community is absolutely crucial, right? So let's get into it, Nicole, and let's find out from Mr. Murphy, from his perspective and his newspaper's perspective, what happened this year, man? What's going on this year? What do we look at when we look back on 2021?
Well, it's nothing. I hear a little echo, but in any case, it was nothing too much happened. It just a repeat of what has been going on. It's just that it's now being revealed. A lot of things had, a status quo, but now America has been exposed to the ways not only has it treated its own people, when yet they was going around policing the world. But when they come back at home, they was guilty of pretty much of the same thing they was accusing other people as well. But the most amazing fact, I guess, from somebody outside looking in, is that the most shocking thing was the transition from Donald Trump and his followers. The most shocking thing, to me, was that many people that voted for him.
You were shocked. You were shocked that 70 million people voted.
Yes, because I thought from my perspective, I'm an optimist. I believe that we fought for this country. We did a lot of things. We built this country, but yet knowing the history of this man and what he had done not only to us but to his own schools and everything else, and I know they want to change, but when you had 4 years of this lying, stealing, just anything goes, and yet after all of that many people voted, that kind of put me in a little more. I'm always in the alert state, but a little bit more alert now because
wow.
That just reveals to me that you got to stay alert. Just put it that way.
So let's stay right there, because you went back to the beginning of the year and you talked about Donald Trump leaving, and obviously Insurrection Day. There used to be Resurrection Day in my religion. Now we got Insurrection Day that we're gonna have to look at for the next decades plus, from January 6th, and that fiasco that will have set precedents for years to come. We're not finished dealing with that. But let me add Art Brashear from Oakland, California, to join you. Hey, Mr. Blackshear, how you doing?
Good afternoon.
Good to see you, my brother. How's everything out there on the West Coast, man? Is the sun still shining out there?
No, we have a lot of rain out here, and it is growing everywhere.
It is what?
We have a lot of rain out here, and everything is growing. It's green.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic, man. But I guess it didn't grow, it didn't rain enough where Washington, D.C. didn't have an effect on it on January 6th of last year. Did it still that? Because that's still part of the same country, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought that. And first off, thank you for having me on your show today. You're doing a wonderful job out here, enlightening and informing our audience. But the biggest thing with January 6th, that's a smaller issue of a bigger problem of America. America has been built on 400 years of slavery, and you have the few people who are hanging on to that, those are most of the people involved in that insurrection. So until we start addressing the bigger issue, which is racism in America, then we're going to have those smaller issues. And if that wasn't small, but we're going to have those type of issues going all across this country.
Did we address racism in any form or fashion this year
No,
at all?
not for Black people.
So Nicole, you said that we didn't really address racism at all, huh?
No.
Anytime you can have an Asian bill put in 30 days to protect Asian people, and 400 plus years, we have laws on the books already, and we are still being persecuted and bullied and denied opportunity, both economically and otherwise. So there's racism, and the powers that be are comfortable with it. If they were not, we would be more than 3/5 of a person in this country.
Wow.
I mean, case in point is look who Time Magazine chose for Man of the Year.
Exactly.
Who they choose, Nicole?
Elon Musk. When you just passed the Man of the Year, the Man of the Year was the one that saved all of those people's lives by turning those protesters around. You know, I think his name is Eugene Goodman, but
that's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, but you know, and Elon Musk, I think, had some issues. But you know, I think you all know today is the first day of Kwanzaa, right? And Umoja means unity, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge, you know, the unity within our community, the unity within our family, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. But racism is an issue. Employment's an issue. Business is an issue. Law and justice is an issue. So when we look at it, Art, Nicole, and David, in terms of this particular year, because this was an eye-opening year because it was into the pandemic, the second year. How did we fare as a community? Go for it, man. This is open forum, man. You have to shout your way into here just like in church.
Michael, let me, and I've been saying this for the last day. Black people are on the bottom of every list, not in America, but in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are on the bottom of health. We are on the bottom of economics. We are on the bottom of socialism. We are on the bottom of home ownership. That's by design, man. And the reason for that is because the media, and let's give a shout out to Donnie Glover, because the media plays a very important role in that. Malcolm X said over 50 years ago, media is the most powerful entity in the world. Now, I say all that to say this because this is your show, Michael, but I want to say that all your listeners out there, and I've also talked about it, I'm going to continue to talk about it on my show, until we start voting and voting in blocks, we are no threat to anybody but to ourselves.
Let me say this.
Powerful.
Yeah, let me jump in here too on that one. You know, I often tell people that, yes, we're on the bottom of their polls and stuff like that. But one thing about Black people, do you know people come from all over the world, set up shop right in the hood, right in the ghetto, and make a fortune and go back and build their own communities. And another thing is, throughout histories, there's always been dynasties like the United States. The Assyrian Empire, Roman Empire, they defeated everything around them. But one thing that always brought these dynasties down, and that was from within. And if Black people, we melanated people, did one simple thing, I ain't saying stop spending. I say just start spending with us. Take some of them resources, start putting it on us. And you watch how this economic stair steps come falling down. Because like I said, that we spend quite a bit of money. We are considered the consumers of the world. You know, we buy this and we buy that. If we stop spending, this will put this country in the world. When you think this pandemic did something, this ain't nothing. Back to you, man.
But was there anything, David, that we did this year, or Nicole, that made it an uplifting moment? Is there anything that we can celebrate that made an uplifting moment? And we got Beverly Cooper Wheel coming on the second part of the show to talk about voting and voting rights and, you know, what we need to do to embrace, you know, a changed atmosphere. But are there any wins this year when we look back at it, David? What is a win for us this year in the Black community?
Well, I personally would say awareness, because like I said earlier, you know, a lot of things has been revealed. A lot of us in this country, we, has been very comfortable with the status quo. You know, as long as I'm doing okay, everything is okay. But now, because of all of these different circumstances, from the killings in the streets, police brutality, the Donald Trump's, you know, situations, the insurrection on the Capitol. You know, I sit there, just simple things like that. You know, when people like me watch this thing in real time, do you know there was a Black Lives Matter? We wouldn't got nowhere near the Capitol, first of all, you know, first and foremost, you know, but we seen firsthand, straight up, how this country operates, especially when it deals with us. Now, they was patriots. We are thugs, we are this and we are that, you know. So they got all of these types of things. And my brother just mentioned the power of media. And what you say, one significant thing that I said, because I am in media. We own less than 1% of the media. You can take all of us, lump us all together. And we own less than 1% of the media. So you know we are being bombarded with all types of subliminal messages, all types of crazy stuff from the time we go to bed. And one of the biggest things I said is a surge of media. People are podcasting. People are starting new, you know, all kinds of things, you know, Black businesses, Black media, some of them are joining forces. And so that's the significance, because we now know we can't do this by ourselves. We have to come. There is no competition. We need to support, especially those of us in media. And that's why every time I see somebody in media, I celebrate them, because, you know, you may not agree with everything they say, but, you know, we need to hear our stories, our voices. And
Wow.
I appreciate all of y'all who's on it, because you all have brought you out there in the media. And so you right on the front lines.
Wow. Nicole, you said earlier that you have a business less than 2 years old or 2 years old. So obviously it started and had to perform during the course of the pandemic. You know, what's your perspective on this year? Are you optimistic about the future in terms of some of the things that you've seen happen, you know, in our country the past 12 months?
I think for the most part, I'm definitely excited about some of the programs that are coming for small businesses. Definitely make more awareness to small businesses, more of the spending with Black businesses. As he spoke to the awareness, I think that the whole Black Wall Street movement, engaging more of the youth, has definitely, you know, been enlightening to us all, especially I'm 45, so the people that's younger than me to be able to take on that was a historical moment for me, because we know it's not taught in schools. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
just for them to be able to say, hey, we want to acquire wealth, we want to be able to purchase real estate, which is something after my heart. I'm excited about that. So because that's what it's going to take for us to have ownership, to control our dollar, to definitely, you know, be aware of who we are spending with, who we're supporting, and when we're in the media, to be impartial, to be non-biased, and to give the truth for what it is, and to so that our younger generation as well as our older generation can be informed. So yeah, I'm
Wow.
excited. I am excited.
Well, that's interesting, Nicole. Two things happened this year. Juneteenth was recognized, you know, by our current president. Also, Black Wall Street, there was acknowledgments and apologies for what happened and desecrated that city or the black economy of that city. And it wasn't only that city that the black economy was desecrated; it was all over the country, because what they do is they show a sign and symbol to intimidate the rest of us to stop doing what it is that we may be doing and contribute. You go down to Mobile, Alabama, you know, and you talk about the bus boycott early on in Birmingham. They started to beat blacks because their economy was suffering when we started to walk. And so when you talk about a day like today, you talk about unity, umoja, and looking at Kwanzaa as maybe a guiding light for us. Not that it takes the place of anything else. Is this what unity is all about? Did we really gain some wins last year when you talk about George Floyd conviction? When you talk about the Arbery conviction, and you talk about other victories, because we were united in our message. And how does that make us look going forward, and what more can we look at going forward? Art, you still there?
For me, I would think, is Art still there? Or,
Yeah,
oh,
here
I
he
think
is.
he
He's
is.
back.
Okay, go ahead.
Unity, is that a question that is being on me?
Yeah, whatever you want to do with it, man.
Like your outstanding other guest speakers on the show, we have got to start making our people understand. United we stand. And I'm going to say that again for the hearing impaired. We stand. See, the man, whether it be Asian man, Hispanic man, or white man, they stand united. That's why when you beat up a couple of Asians, and I don't have anything against Asian people, but back here in Oakland, within 30 days, they were putting out police. Police were dispatched to their areas. Crime had been was starting to be reduced. They were addressing it. That's because people vote. The bottom line here, to everyone on this panel, we have got to urge our people to vote. That is why the politicians don't give us anything, because the ones of the people who do vote, they live up with white people. So you vote with the white people and then they make their vote stronger. If you go to any black urban area in the country, not in the state, not in your city, not in the county, but in the country, you'll get 25, maybe 30%. And that's a good day participation on vote. So an elected official feels no threat, no harm, and no urge to get anything going in the urban black neighborhood and area.
Hey, that's interesting you say that, Art. And I'm going to bring Beverly Cooper Wheelie in, who works with Force Multiplier, so that we can better understand, because you all said it earlier about the power of the vote. And they know the power of the vote. That's why the legislation was passed in Georgia, and they took it to the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House to try to pass national legislation in terms of voter rights, because they know that the answer for us to continue to move forward is in the ability and power to vote. We changed some jurisdictions the past election relative to vote. But let's talk about before we bring Beverly in. I want you guys to stay around another 10 minutes to engage Beverly, who's a voting rights activist and expert. But let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about COVID-19 and its effect on our community and its effect on our businesses, etc. What happened with COVID this year relative to the black community? How did COVID affect us? It's the biggest thing going, man. None of us, we were sheltered in place for 18 months.
But briefly, it highlights black people are at the bottom of the healthcare system. That's why more black people were dying. Initially, they thought it was an effect black people, lolly dolly nilly willy out here. But when we found out that it was affecting health wise and killing black people, it still was not addressed properly.
And even on top of that, even though it's very controversial about this COVID and us and everything else, but the main thing I saw was people for the first time had opportunity to sit down and think and renegotiate their life, because, like I say, many of jobs was lost and many businesses was upside down, and so people really had to change their way of thinking, change their mindsets about how they're going to survive. And I don't know. Well, everybody has a measure of gifts, and what I'm seeing on my end are people who was comfortable in corporate America are now rethinking it. They're thinking about doing for self, taking those gifts and talents that God has blessed us all with, and they put them to use. They finally realize that ain't nothing safe anymore.
Wow.
And if we don't do for self now, ain't nobody, the story, ain't nobody come back to save us. So, and they now know that no matter what stage of life you are, you're still one of us.
Wow. Nicole, what do you have to add to that, Nicole, before I go to a question?
Hey, I was seconding, everything that he pretty much said, both gentlemen there. And another thing that I would definitely add is that it exposed a lot of businesses, the weaknesses, from whether or not we were able to do business. A lot of people want to be in business, but they don't know how to do business. You know what I mean? Like whether they have an attorney, an accountant, just being at the forefront. it also exposed, the thieves. If you really want to be truthful, the people that we're seeing now are in trouble for like all these different PPP issues. You know what I'm saying? Like people that I would have thought never, would be caught up, but it exposed a lot.
Wow, really? So a lot of people got caught up in taking money from the government and is coming back to haunt them now?
It's all over the news. I mean,
Oh,
from
wow.
law enforcement people to, your everyday people that, I
Wow.
mean, money is the root of all evil. So we're seeing it.
Wow. Well,
Well, well,
let me bring Beverly. Beverly,
Hi
Cooper
there.
Wheatley.
Hello
How
to
you
you
doing,
and yes.
Beverly?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm even better hearing one of your last guests say, we gotta vote, because that's my thing. So being having had that kind of introduction ahead of me, I couldn't be more pleased. So thanks.
So we talked about Donald Trump. You know what's surprising of you guys that you didn't talk about? And I'm wondering why. And maybe you gotta take a check on that. No one has mentioned Kamala Harris. Did anybody mention Kamala Harris? Was it this year or was it last year? That's okay. I'm not going to embarrass you. Look, Art took a drink. I hope it was just coffee. But the point of it is that to the point of what you all were talking about, voting in power, was supposed to be a deal changer for us, right? And I went to a presidential town hall, and Joe Biden told me, well, he told others that look like me, that he would get back to us after he gets this legislation passed, right? So Beverly, what's up with
Absolutely.
Kamala?
Well, first of all, she will appreciate it if you call her Kamala. As she says,
Okay,
it
and you
rhymes
know
with
what? You're
Mamala.
absolutely right. If she would please come out in public again, I'll remember that it's Kamala, because you're
Kamala.
absolutely right. If I could just see her a bit more so I could practice it, I
Okay.
will absolutely do it. But thank you very much, Beverly, for reminding me. But tell us about Kamala.
I'll tell you about Kamala. My theory is that unfortunately, as a black female, she is going to be the person who gets the most brickbats thrown at her. She's going to get blamed for things that aren't her fault. She's not going to get coverage where she deserves coverage. And if you remember her as a senator, we're talking about a very smart woman who had her finger on all the issues. Joe Biden has definitely given her things to do, but we're not hearing about it. And the people who are going to hate her just because she's black and female, they hate her because she's black and female, and there isn't anybody saying anything about it, except maybe you.
So
well,
let me ask you. So good point. Good point. She's doing things we just haven't heard about it because someone asked Joe Biden that very question a couple of months ago. What's up with Kamala? Now we know that they had some personality differences because she called him out on stage a couple of
Yes.
years ago, and we're wondering what the effect of that is. But moreover, she is our person. And not one of us in 32 minutes, as a point of significance, which we are talking about today, even mentioned her name. And then when we did, we said it wrong. I said it wrong. So, how do we use the vice president's office? How do we use Raphael Warnock's office? Tell us about the need to do even more in that direction, Bev. I mean, because that's what force multiplier is about, right? All right, go ahead, man.
I see a hand up.
I gotta say this. You saw me almost gritting my teeth to gnawing my. I could have gnawed my arm off, but I gotta say that out here in the Bay Area, Oakland, California, we have a ILWU, International Labor Warehouse Union. President Willis. We're having the ILWU Local 10 out here is one of the strongest unions in the nation with a 74% African American membership. The ships, if you guys have noticed, have been pushed from Oakland down to Long Beach and down to LA, which is putting a lot of black people out of work. While we have ships in the LA Channel and long short and long down south waiting to be unloaded, and we have men up here on layoff, men and women, because there are women in IL, they be on layoff. Now circling that back around to Kamala Harris, and I'll say it correctly, Vice President Kamala Harris. I know people who helped raise her $500,000+ when she ran. I know people out here, Black people, who supported her. But now we have a union who is getting destroyed. Destroyed. If there was a bunch of white men out here, oh my God. And on top of that, we have a multi-billionaire Fisher family who owns the Oakland A's, who is trying to have a Disneyland park out here where the longshoremen make their money. They make anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 a year being a longshoreman out here. Where are you going to get a job like that in the Bay Area that pays that kind of money, that can afford our African-American brothers and sisters to have a good living? So I say all that to say this. Kamala Harris, where are you?
Can I say something? Can I jump in there one moment? I'm just curious. I'm not too heavy into politics, but based on what I'm seeing, reminds me, I'm just going to call it names like the Bloods and the Crips. How can you get anything done when you got people supposed to be intelligent, elected officials, and every time an issue come up, they voting right down party line? Nobody has a mind to stand up for themselves and advocate for the people. So how can you get anything done when you got these over here locked in blood in and blood out, and then you got these over here, and while the whole country is suffering?
So you talking about black on black crime? Is that what you're talking about? That was predominant.
I'm talking about Congress. Congress itself. You know, you got the Republicans doing this, the Democrats doing this, and nothing's pretty much getting done because we don't want you to get ahead of us, and we don't want, you know, I don't care what the issue, how good it is for the people. How can you have, now say I'm 70 years old. I'm just being straight up about this. When I was coming up, people in Congress voted on issues.
Right.
What was best for their constituents. I don't care how good a program is in Congress these days. If it's not a Republican thing or Democratic thing, they're not going to vote for it, period. Just down party line. Like I said, that's why I say just worse than the blood in the Crips.
I think it goes back, though. It goes right back to awareness, because a lot of times people don't know what their elected officials are voting for. A lot of times that stuff is obscured. And that, I think it's up to the media. We need to start exposing how these people are voting, the bills that they're introducing, because that right there, most people aren't looking for it. They're not going and trying to figure it out, you know? So it's up to us to be like, bam, this is how they voted. You know what I mean?
So now I've got my hand up.
Go ahead.
People don't know about how Congress works. You know, I hear people say, well, I'm just not interested in politics. You can't really complain about it if you don't know what's going on. Yes, we absolutely have partisan division. You know about the very narrow margin we have in the House, 221 Democrats, 214 Republicans. Absolutely, since Barack Obama, Republicans have practically been in lockstep against any and everything the Democrats have done. First of all, because we had a Black president.
Yep.
So as I think I told Michael a few weeks ago, the Republicans wouldn't even appropriate money to fix the Capitol, and there were chunks falling off of it into the street. That's how much they didn't want to do. I mean, when you talk about what Democrats do, did people get some COVID relief money? Did people get $250 or $300 a month for their kids? Democrats did that, and they did it by themselves. Not a Republican voted for it, but trust me, they're all out in their districts with the big checks talking about what they got done. You know, we need to know who's doing what for us. And trust me, I try very hard not to be a Democratic apologist, but they have come through. There's much more that they've done. I've got a list that's a few pages long, and I'm not going to bore you by reading it. But if I have time at some point, I'm going to throw on my reading glasses and just put a couple of things out there that are important to us as people, as people who live in the United States, even if they don't pertain particularly to Black people. But I see
So
other folks.
Beverly, is the Democratic Party, which appears to be the party of choice for Black people, is that the cure-all that we need? Do we need to look at getting a better majority for Biden in the Congress and Congress as well as the Senate? And how do we do that?
Absolutely.
How do we do
How do
that?
we do that? Well, we vote. That's how we do it. Right now, when people talk about the Senate has a majority, we don't have a majority. The Senate is 50-50. It's a tie if everyone behaves themselves. Now, as we know, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are not going to behave themselves.
Are they Democrats?
Well, that's how they ran, but that may not be how they act. So if we get some more Democrats in the Senate who are actually going to vote along with Democrats, right now, the best we can have is a tie. We can't continue with a tie. We've got to vote in more people. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned Reverend Warnock. You remember that on January 5th, the day before the insurrection, both he and John Ossoff got elected as Democratic senators in Georgia, which is something that had not happened in decades. Warnock has to defend his seat in November 2022. Republicans are already attempting to divide us, and maybe the folks on the panel know this. They're trying to run Herschel Walker as their Republican candidate. Now, I don't know how people feel about Herschel Walker.
Herschel is a great football player, but he would be a terrible.
Yes. Oh, I know who he is.
He would be a. It would be.
I know who he is, and it's offensive. Yeah, it's offensive to me that Republicans believe that, you know what, if I put up a Black sports figure, they're all going to come running. Now, right. I heard an interview with Herschel Walker on a conservative TV network. The man is incoherent. He is not only unqualified, he is incoherent.
Dumb as a rock.
The commentator asked him a question about John Lewis, and this is what Herschel Walker said. I know the kind of person John Lewis was. I don't know why he would let people attach his name to this voting rights bill. He wasn't into that. Herschel.
And so let's go back for a minute.
John Lewis
So I hear you, but let's look at Joe Biden, because I've heard the same description of incoherent with him as well, although maybe it has to be a bit more with where he is in life, and I don't take that facetiously at all, right? But let's look at him and Vice President Harris's performance to date since they were elected, because what you're telling us now, Bev, is what you told us 2 or 3 years ago when we needed to ramp up to look at replacing Trump, and we did it. We came through, we got Trump out of office, and then Biden said in November that we'd have to take a Black seat. He can't get voting rights passed in the House or in the Senate right now, right? So let's talk about his performance.
Okay, he didn't say he couldn't get voting rights passed in the House because we have the majority in the House. That's going to happen.
He said he could before he ran and before he got elected.
Well, let's remember, when we vote for Joe Biden, we vote for Joe Biden. When we vote for the Senate, we vote for the Senate. If we don't have a majority, and I believe the Voting Rights Act may take a 60 vote margin. We know it's going to be filibustered. If we don't have the numbers, we don't have the numbers. Now, we're not in the good old days anymore when we actually could have a Democratic majority of 60 plus votes in the Senate. But at least let's try to get above the 50 where we are. We know that Republicans are not going to vote for anything the Democrats propose. But just imagine that if Manchin and Sinema were on the right side, we'd have 50-50. There's Kamala Harris to break the tie. But we're not getting that because we just don't have enough people. I mean,
wow.
Both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can have really good intentions, but they're not the ones who are carrying them out. They need other people to do that.
Wow.
You got a hand.
May I say something? If we continue on the blackusa.news to hammer home how important it is. If we can increase our black vote, not 25%, hell, 5 or 10%, we can make an impact on local, county, state, and federal elections. But the politicians are banking. They're banking on that we're not going to vote unless you have a concert or giving out free food or some kind of Nike something or other. They're banking on that. And we have to change that narrative. In 2015 to the current day, I work with Pamela Price, who was one of the few black woman attorneys to argue the case against the Supreme Court, who has been training and developing me to understand how important it is to get our people out to vote, whether it be in Oakland, California, Little Rock, Arkansas, Chicago, or New York. Our people will not vote unless it's extraordinary circumstances, and that is killing us as a people.
Wow. Well, it
Michael,
seems as though the vote is something that's important to our community, right? Which is part of the reason why President Biden can't get it through the House or the Senate, because I don't recall when he made that commitment, voting rights legislation, him saying that it was dependent on, right? And I'm going to hold him accountable. I'm going to hold him accountable because, to Beverly's point, I believe in force multiplier. I believe that we are the key to a multitude of elections around the country. And that publications like David, and David just said he's not a politician. He doesn't understand politics or whatever he said, but he has a vehicle out there, right? That can help expose the need for us to vote. But we got to hold these politicians accountable. Biden sold blacks a bill of goods that he has yet to live up to at this time. And I don't think that he gave us a sense of timing in terms of when he'd be able to do it. And Bev, I know you got a lot to say about that. See your head
I
turning,
will.
but I still love him. He's a nice guy. Nicole, what do you think?
Oh, well, for me, I think that one thing of interest that Biden did do was that he put in initiatives to decrease the home ownership gap between white people and black people. As we know, it decreased, and it increased rather, where we've lost a lot of our homes, and a lot of us are no longer homeowners, and that's significant. So back in June, he actually did some initiatives for the appraisal values, where there is a significant difference between when appraisers go to black people's homes versus white people's homes. Our differences are astronomical. So that's a plus for Biden. He gave us Juneteenth, which is a celebration that I think we all should be aware of the history behind that. And that's about the most that I know. I realize the fair child credit or something that people are getting. That's significant. So he's done some things. Can we? I know a lot of people were hopeful for the student loans. I don't know whether or not that's a possibility to extinguish all of those, but we're still in. I mean, there was a lot of damage that was done, 4 years prior. And I think that, again, I'm not really as concerned with the presidential elections as I am more for my local and state, because that is where my issues lie. But I will say he's trying. He's trying. I mean, he had 4 years of a mess. So any of us that will come in and we got to start cleaning up, I think he's trying,
Right, I hear you, Nicole. And what happened in Wisconsin, what happened in Minnesota, what happened in Georgia, is important to us as a community of blacks, period. That, because I don't disagree that local is good, but this is what seems to be the conquered and divide mentality of the Congress and the Senate. Because you think Georgia doesn't affect Maryland when it comes to what's going on in the voting rights bill that's down there in front of people? Go ahead, Art.
I'd like to say this. Mayor of Oakland just visited Kamala Harris, our vice president, and her talk was about building the infrastructure at the Oakland Port of Oakland that will help one white man who is a Republican who owns the Oakland A's, John Fisher. I want to say that again. John Fisher, one white man who's trying to buy up the Port of Oakland that's going to displace a union with a 74% African American membership. These are the types of that we don't highlight, that we need to pressure. We need to pressure our local elected officials. So I concur with Ms. Orr, my friend Nicole, and Barbara that local politics are critical for Black people and Black politics. At the end of the day, when you have a white mayor, Libby Schaaf of Oakland, to go lobby the vice president for a ballpark for a one white man and won't stand up for the International Longstore and Warehouse Union members. And we have a back shortage of commodities coming from the Pacific Coast. That's a problem, and we need to address it.
I've got to say something. Obviously, I am not familiar with politics at the local level in the San Francisco or the Bay Area. But I will say, remember, there's only so much people at the executive level, at the national level, can do for local events. I also want to remind people that when Build Back Better was first introduced, do you remember the number was in the much higher trillions, 9.8 trillion or 8.5 trillion. The Republicans beat it down to 3.5 trillion, and then Manchin wouldn't even go for that. So imagine how many more people would have benefited or will benefit if we got that number up. Again, can't get it up in the Senate, even among Democrats, because of Joe Manchin, the coal millionaire, who won't even vote for his constituents. West Virginia is a ridiculously poor state. He is harming his own people, and I don't know why. But again, it has to do with our turning out. We turn out for local elections at an even lower rate than we do for national elections. And I think you're somebody who knows that. So when you say we've got to get out there, we've got to get out there at every level. But we particularly have to get out nationally during midterms. The people voted for Barack Obama in 2008. Everybody and their mama were happy. We stayed home in 2010, and that's when the House lost something like 40 seats. Now, you can't tell me that in a lot of states, we didn't have enough people to turn those numbers over. We did, but we stayed home. We didn't think it mattered to us because we didn't see somebody who looked like us. You don't have to look like me as long as you have my interests at heart.
That's interesting, David.
Yes,
David.
you know, like I said, the National Black Unity News is a solution-oriented publication. And for order, a confused mind does nothing. And so what I'm going to suggest is this. We have to educate us. We have to make it so that it's understand the importance of politics and politicians. And until that time, because from the outside looking in, the average person will look up there and say, well, ain't nothing, they on this side and they on that side. But if you educate, just like you just mentioned, all of those particulars, that's why it's so important that we have to get involved. Because this can change. And see, when you educate people, then they can do better. And so I'm going to make a suggestion again. Now, we have a national format, and I will welcome any one of you to come on if you're interested in politics, because that's what we do. If somebody's in the politics, we want to educate our people, renew their minds. And I would be honored to talk to you about this so that we could, like I said, we all have to get in a little bit of media that we do have. All of us need to have a format on that educating people by the importance of voting and getting involved.
I'd be honored to join you because that's what I spend every waking hour doing.
Okay.
I'll make sure that David's information is right here on the screen, and it's a wonderful, professionally printed periodical, and I think it could be a galvanizing force in our community. Art?
I would like to say that Price ran for attorney back in 2016, 2018. We put together a barbershop forum, which was mirrored and simultaneously done by other politicians in the Bay Area, where we outline first off what the measures, local measures are. Second, the politicians, what they voted on and what they stood for. Third, how to vote and how to register vote. If we use this platform to teach our people not only how to vote, how to register, but what they're voting for, we could become a powerhouse.
Sir.
Powerhouse in our community, not locally, county, state, but nationally.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, we're at the 4-minute point before we get to the 7 o'clock hour, and we're expecting Donnie Glover, publisher and founder, to come on. So before we let you good people go and wish you a happy Kwanzaa, I want to hear final thoughts. Nicole, don't you go nowhere. Nicole, better, okay? Nicole, don't go out the room with the rest. But David, final thoughts, man. Final thoughts, David, in terms of what you see for next year. What does it look like next year, man, based on what happened in the past?
Well, based on what's happening in the past, it looks great for me because we are awakening. You awakening the giant. All of these things that happen to us is a wake-up call. And those of us who are conscious and those of us who are unconscious going to reach out to each other because we all we have and we all we need. But again, those of us who are in media, because that's one of our most powerful forces, like I say, we own less than 1% of that. And so we are being bombarded with all types of false information, what to wear, what to do this and what to do that. But those of us who are taking a stand in media, we can change that tide. Because people now, one time we wouldn't trust one another, didn't even love one another. But now we see that a lot of us out there truly have each other's back. We are our brother's keepers. And we have to. This is not an announcement. This is critical. This is actually warfare. This is life and death. This is based on our children's future. You see what's taking place. They're stepping up their game. And they have no shame about what they're doing. They blatant about it. And we have to be the same way too. By any means necessary. And so I am available. And I have many formats. And as Michael Haney knows, I'm not a stingy person. I'm willing to share resources, information, if it's going to uplift us. And so my final thoughts is this. We need to come together. We need to support one another. We have so much power with us alone. Power from economic, voting right, everything. Like I said, we can take this whole country just by us being conscious enough to be respectful to one another and do for one another, and most importantly, educate one another. Back to you, man. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thanks a lot, David. Art.
United, we stand. Divided, we will fall. Period. Thank you.
Beverly, force multiplier.
I'm going to say, first of all, get started early. There are folks out there in many states who want to confound you and confuse you to keep you from being able to vote. Mm-hmm. You start looking at the legislation and the requirements for voting in your state now. Learn what they are. Get people together to teach each other. Get people to tell each other how to register to vote. Get people together to look at all of the ridiculous administrative requirements that people are going to put in your way so that you can overcome those. Second, misinformation. we fall prey to media misinformation very easily. Some of it is very specifically geared toward people of color to make us disenchanted and not want to vote. Anything you hear, check out. Check the source. The source could be China or Russia, and you don't know that. It's just something you believe because you think it's something that you ought to believe. Don't believe anything until you check it out yourself, because misinformation is deliberately designed to keep you from participating. And the last thing I would say is vote. Put your money together, you consolidate, work for candidates, tell your friends, especially in Georgia. We can't lose a single seat. And we're not going to. Keep in mind, we're going to gain. We're doing it better.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'd like to thank each of you for joining us for this first hour. Great conversation, great information. I wish you and yours, your businesses, a phenomenal 2022. And viewers, stay on as we got more time to go, but we're going to thank these guests that have been with us so far, and you all have a blessed new year.
And you do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Nicole.
Very interesting group.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So, Nicole, you mentioned local, right? So, while we wait for our founder and CEO, Donnie Glover, to come on, let's talk local. You're in Baltimore, right?
My business is in Baltimore. My home base is actually in Calvert County.
Okay, so but you are in the state of Maryland somewhere there, right?
Yes,
so you are in the state of Maryland, right?
Correct.
So what's happening in Baltimore, right? Baltimore seems to be a headline for the state relevant to law and justice. I mean,
Baltimore, it's the most populous city in the state of Maryland, and it is largely Black, as well as the administration is largely Black. But yet, there are a lot of issues that concern Black people, and those issues not necessarily being met. It's a complex situation with the city. I do think that a lot of the administration could do a lot better by the residents, the legacy residents, and just overall in general. But I think with the right advocacy and the right, the right people pushing and putting the information out there and staying on top of the issues, that the city can turn around. There's still a chance that, I want to see it do well, no doubt. I have a lot of money invested in the city. I think that it will be, I don't want to see anyone fail. I think that we still have a chance to turn the city around from the crime. We know where the root of the crime is coming from, and a lot of it is coming from opportunity. It's coming from the fact that there's not a lot of money that's being poured into, monitoring the offenders that come back onto the street. And so we have to look at all of that because it all comes full circle. So
that's real. That's real, Nicole. That's real. Yeah, crime in Baltimore, particularly the murders, grandparents, father, mother, and the lack of a foundation and owning the issue. We don't have a police or elected leaders issue per se because it's that out of control. But that's another conversation, that we could go on and on. But we have to begin to own. And today, Umoja, unity. We have to come united, particularly as a family, and own our issues. Own our issues. Hey, guess who we've got in the waiting room?
Who?
Well, it's not Santa Claus.
Donnie,
it's Donnie, man. It's Donnie. I'm so excited. This is the first time that Donnie has been on our show. Donnie Glover, if you all don't know, is the publisher and founder of Black USA News, Be More News. Donnie has done the White House. Donnie is a phenomenal media guru. And if it wasn't for Donnie, I wouldn't be here, to help him link the dream of communicating and giving blacks information relative to our own community. But that's not an introduction. That's just me looking for a pay raise, right? So hopefully
Okay.
Donnie heard that. So Nicole, you're going to do the introduction to Donnie. I'm going to bring him in here. You're going to do the introduction to Donnie, but hopefully I got my pay raise. So let's bring Mr. Glover into the stream. Hey, Mr. Glover.
Woohoo! There he is. This is Donnie Glover. You know what? He's a man that does not need a lot of introduction. He is a multiple series author, correct? We have, let me make sure, it's Unapologetically Black is one. And his new book, Black Wall Street. And I'm spinning off the top, Donnie, because he didn't send me your bio. Be More News. You know, he's done that for over 20 years. This is the man that has been to the White House, you know, so back when it was now the Black House. So, and he's covering and he's given us our platform, Sister Biz, 7:00 on Wednesdays. And he has a plethora of different channels that come on Mondays, Keita and Chap. And Tuesday is Donnie Glover. He actually has his show that comes on at 7. Wednesday is myself and Tamara. And then Thursday is Art. Friday, Kamal. And Sunday, you, Mike Haney. So Donnie is trying to create.
Don't forget to touch me on Saturday because I don't want her to.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yeah, we don't want to forget her.
Yes,
Yeah, but you did really well there. And you know, tomorrow, Nicole, I didn't send you Donnie's bio because you know I would have had to lend you my mind, right? Because I don't have a bio on Donnie. When you study someone intimately and you understand where they are, and this is the beauty of having Donnie on for our last 25 minutes because I want to find some stuff out, man.
Okay.
You know, I don't know about you, but hey, listen. I know we can't get to all the questions. I did write those out, but I have a few. So, Mr. Glover, say hi to our viewers, man. What's going on? I've never seen him this quiet, Nicole.
Good evening.
Happy Kwanzaa, Donnie.
Happy Kwanzaa. Hello, Nicole.
Hey. How are you?
Reserved.
I hear you. Hey, Donnie, well, I'm going to start it out. Man.
Some of the early part of the show, and you covered a lot of issues. I hope we get a chance to cover them, touch them.
Yeah, we're going to let you cover whatever you want, man, once we get one or two questions out of the way. And I got one. Nicole may have one. Unapologetically Black, right? You wrote that book. Could you explain to the viewers what unapologetic Black means and why a Black man felt the need to write that book? Why'd you write that book?
There was a gubernatorial forum recently, and the theme was the Black agenda in Maryland. And I won't call the candidate by name, but again, the theme, the marquee was the Black agenda. And people running for governor had an opportunity to expound, give their take on, hello, Mr. Murphy, on what the Black agenda is. Well, this one candidate showed up and started talking about everything but the Black agenda, started talking about people of color. So that's a sign of apologetically Black. Talking, it says we're talking about the Black agenda, and this candidate started talking about people of color and all Americans, and we all deserve opportunities. And for me, that's apologetically Black. Unapologetically Black, we are who we are, and we shouldn't have to change who we are to be accepted by anyone. I mean, when I think of Nicole, she's unapologetically Black. She is who she is, accept it or don't mess with it, like DMX said. And she's gonna stand up for people. Plus, she more gangster than Baltimore. Baltimore don't know. She from the Chi, man. Baltimore small potatoes compared to the Chi.
They can't.
Wow. I hear you, Donnie, relative to unapologetically Black. I think some people may perceive that it's kind of like They look at you as hostile, that you're going to be, black, and because they don't understand what that means. It means I'm just another human being. I just happen to be this color in this culture, about being black or being from Africa that we're about. But, how did people receive that book, man?
That's a great question. Invariably, I'll run across some non-black readers, white people, who see the name I Am Black Wall Street, for instance, or Unapologetically Black, and immediately view me as being racist, being hostile. And it was shocking at first. I did a video a couple years back on Black Indians, and I write about it in I Am Black Wall Street, how, many of us have Black indigenous roots. I've talked to both of you. I think, Michael, you almost assured me you had some you had some indigenous roots. We're not taught that. We're only taught that we were brought here to America in the bottom of a slave ship. We're not exposed to the fact that the actual first blacks in the past 500 years to come to America were conquistadors. Juan Garrido. It's in I Am Black Wall Street. Also, Esteban, Little Stephen. These were Black conquistadors from Spain. And so then I'm reminded of the Moors, who were dominating Spain up until the point of slavery. A lot of our history has been erased, and what we seek to do with this Black media is to bring it all together and help us to understand that the brother down the street named Noble Bay Eel, his connection to the Moorish faith is deeper than we really understand. This land is more our land, as much our land as anyone else's, and from a historical perspective. You look at South America with Luzia from Brazil. Her bones are 14,000 years old. That's as old as any Asian that came through the Bering Strait. So I think the more we know who we are, the less we have to feel. See, it's not about how other people are intimidated. What about, I heard David Murphy allude to it. You alluded to it. Look what we've been through for the past 500 years dealing with non-blacks in North America.
Wow.
We've endured terrorism and trauma, and ongoing trauma, but there's also some ongoing healing. And I promise you that I will share with you a year-end message of optimism, of hope. There is some hope. There's a lot of progress that has happened this year. You look at Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin got convicted. Nobody in a million years thought it was going to happen. Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, William Bryant, they were all found guilty in Ahmaud Arbery, New Brunswick, Georgia. Kim Potter, she just got indicted, convicted. Dante Wright in Minnesota. We have Black businesses that have opened, despite all that our Black businesses have gone through. You got the Imad Center on North Avenue. Rashid Aziz has helped empower young African-American, young Black people, clean cut. They're running businesses right there in the heart of West Baltimore, just a few blocks from Penn North, the epicenter of Freddie Gray. You got Hoodfellas, Bistro, they just opened down in the Muncie building on South Calvert Street. Casey Jenkins just opened Darker Than Blue, 413. And there are others who have survived. You think of Next Phase down on East Lexington Street. Shout out to these Black businesses, Terra Cafe, Black businesses that, Nicole, she's a serial entrepreneur. There's a lot to be optimistic about. And one thing about that COVID, I remember you alluded to COVID earlier. To all the businesses out there, find yourself a Nicole to mentor you. Find yourself a network of other business owners like Michael Haney who understand what you go through. You got to rub elbows with people who can help you and you can help them. That's Black Wall Street today.
Wow.
Nicole introduced me to a plumber where I would have had to pay $450 or so. I got it for $150.
Wow. You're right, Donnie. Those are the connections, man. But when you look at this year,
Nicole.
you talked about the pandemic, you talked about Black Wall Street. When you look at this year, and we're going to make sure you have time to give that message of optimism to the world, right? What is the most significant event in your estimation that happened in our community this year, our broad community? You know, I understand local, but you know, we're affected by national, international, and you are the founder of Black USA News. So what is it that has impacted our community the greatest on a national basis?
I would say Deion Sanders.
Wow.
First it would start with Robert Smith. And those other, some prefer anonymity. Let's remember that. But those, Black philanthropy, that's on my list. Black philanthropy. Those, you know, Robert Smith, he paid the whole student loan debt for the graduating class of Morehouse a couple years ago. He opened the door. He showed us how it's done. I mean, you can't get no more Chicago gangster than that. And so then Deion, he lends his celebrity to it. Neon Deion, I mean, having studied him a little bit, Neon Deion is very strategic. He's very surgical. He's very deliberate. And so when he goes and lends his name, and then they recently gave him, who's the coach of Grambling? Eddie Robinson? Was that his name?
Yes. Yep.
They gave him the Eddie Robinson Award recently.
Yep.
And then recently, forgive me for not having the young man's name, a star football player opted to go to an HBCU.
He was the number two. He was the number two. He was the number two listed football player in America, and he backed out of the University of Florida and went to an HBCU, Jackson State University, because he said he wanted to play with Deion Sanders. Now, imagine if all our Black athletes of that caliber made that decision. That's an economic game changer right there, man.
But it starts with
absolutely
right here. Now, I gotta say, I live around the corner from the home gym to Tank Davis. I went to Dunbar, came out in '83. That was the year we had the championship team, Muggs, Russ, and others. We brought Gregory Branch on this network, Major League Baseball player, incredible give back. We've brought Hugh Smith on this network, incredible give back. What I'm getting to is it is no longer acceptable, Nicole, for our athletes not to understand the give back. LeBron James made it popular. But we've got too many athletes that have come through Baltimore for us to not have some brand new state-of-the-art recreation facilities for our young people. Too many celebrities, stars, millionaires have come through Baltimore. BNBL, Project Survival, Mac Lewis, Upton.
It's interesting you say that, Donnie, because on the previous hour, Beverly Cooper Wheel mentioned Herschel Walker, because Black athletes in our community have always been shown that that's a path out of our community, although we know education's a big one as well. So it's more than just athletes, but athletes in our community are revered, right? To the point that you have a detrimental revelation with a Herschel Walker. But you're right, our Black athletes have to look to be more involved in our community.
I've reported on this network how I followed one Baltimore Raven a few years back, star running back. I went to cover him down in Anne Arundel County. He had 13 non-black people working for him, 1 black person working for him. See, he's got it inverted. He's got it all twisted up. He's backwards because, Nicole, that's what they tell these young black. First of all, if the young black men going to a white college, they put them white girls on them from jump. Is that correct, Mike?
Yep.
And then once they get the money, they put them agents on them, and they not black. So that's why when you have people like LeBron that grooms his own agents, you know, who helps empower his own community. It's not enough to be broke at 30 after 5 years in the NFL. 1 year in the NFL is enough seed money, I would think, Mike, for somebody to grow a thriving business. And then also to our young athletes, you ain't got to have all the damn tattoos in the world. I mean, my God, the white boy get the contract. He show up in a Chevy pickup truck and a t-shirt. We got to have earrings. I mean, come on, man.
Well, you know, Donnie, I agree with you, and that's part of what I said as Nicole and I were talking about local in Baltimore, the community issues with murders. I said it's not a law enforcement problem. It's not a political problem. It's a problem inside the house. Where's the foundation? And what a good time to talk about it on Umoja, Unity Day today, you know, that we'll make a statement about. But, you know, the compelling, influential news event of 2021 from your perspective is Deion Sanders and how he's changing the game and the name in our community. And then you got Herschel Walker.
Also, the broader the issue of HBCUs getting funding like never before. And so let me just add, as a student, a grad student at Morgan, our HBCUs have to step up to the plate also. Here in Baltimore, when it comes to Baltimore, the issues, social issues, poverty, white addicts in the hood that we've covered, we need our black colleges to be more engaged in the black community. There are 9 black college presidents between Baltimore and DC. Why haven't they come together?
Because they own, Donnie, right? Aren't they owned? They get their money.
No, I'm being encouraging. It's time for those 9 black college presidents to get together and come up with something, because
didn't they go to the White House a couple of years ago to see President Trump and he gave them money and they were criticizing our community?
I'm talking about what we can do for ourselves. We are often, Nicole, like beggars sitting on bags of gold. We have everything we need. You preach it all the time, but we're busy thinking like a beggar. God made us lenders, not borrowers, but we quite often act like we don't know how to run things. And we always have. We've always had to do more with less. But now that we're getting this increase, this influx, it's time to be better stewards over those gifts. Education is a serious thing. Are our HBCUs graduating enough black students? Are enough students on these campuses? Is the outreach enough? Are we reaching blacks in the immediate vicinity of Morgan, Coppin, Bowie, and Eastern Shore? Are we doing all that we can do? Or is it just about begging? Also, when I think of media in particular, we got to think beyond just educating the next generation of journalists. We need media entrepreneurs. Technology has leveled the playing field. We're still talking about getting a job in a newsroom. We should be talking about developing a global media network. I mean, thanks to you, Mike, we did our first live shows from Africa. We've done at least one more since then. But with this technology, and that's what we really aim to do with Black USA, is to expand our network. Nicole ships all over the world. Did you know that, Michael?
Yes, she told me. We talked about that last week. She's got an international business.
Absolutely.
Yep, I
Thank you, the
do.
builder.
I do. I think for me, 2021, the most I think event that stood out for me was just recently happened, December 8th, December 9th. The producer Jay Prince was able to unify two men for a common cause that most of, I guess, the younger world, and so for those of us that kind of just stay abreast to the different things that happen in different parts of our culture, uh, Kanye West and Drake, they hated each other for some time, and for him to be able to unite them for a common cause,
What was the
just
cause?
basically spoke volumes for us, that we don't have to like each other.
What was the cause?
The cause was for political prisoners, the political prisoner Larry Hoover.
Who is Larry Hoover?
Larry Hoover is, I mean, it just depends to, I guess, whoever, you know. Some people call him a prisoner, some people call him a drug dealer, a murderer. But one thing is for certain is that he's been institutionalized for over 25 years and in solitary confinement, whether that's the right thing for the federal government to continue to hold him, is up for discussion. I mean, it just depends on the person that would be, I guess, delving into the case. But that event was so important because again, it showed unification, that it can happen, that we don't have to like each other to push an agenda to get things done. And that was powerful. I mean, it was a sold out arena. You know what I mean? And the tickets were not cheap, and they were able to raise a substantial amount of money, to push forward, for his case of freedom as well as other prisoners. So that spoke volumes that it can be done, that as Black people, we do not have to agree on everything, but all we need is unification. And I think that speaks volumes for today, unity. So that to me was one of the most important events that stood out for 2021.
Wow, that's powerful, Nicole. And it's amazing how quickly 90 minutes goes, and 30 minutes, man. I mean, I'm thirsting for more.
Short,
and
man.
Mr. Glover, we got to bring you back.
Ain't no
right?
coming back, man. You better get it now.
Yeah, well, we're gonna bring you back too, man, because it helps the ratings. Okay, so
Hey, Nicole, I
listen.
got a question for Nicole. How heavy were those boots Kanye had on?
Well, I'm gonna ask him, but it's probably about 15 pounds. But brother Kanye is a genius, and he's done a lot for the city of Chicago. He's very well respected. He's got his issues. I will say that we all do. We all got our issues. So.
You said he did more for Chicago than most any other celebrity.
Than most of those politicians, I would say, that have done for the city of Chicago. Correct.
Can you tell me a little bit more? I want people to hear this.
Kanye West, he basically has donned a house. He's taken a lot of the youth up under his wing to learn different parts of the business. He's employed a large portion. When you look at 66th and 76th in Chicago, a large portion of those children, are part of his entourage. So I will say that Kanye West, he gives back to the community. I'm proud of Kanye. He's it's his mom. She taught at Chicago State. And he came from humble beginnings, and he has not forgotten that. So Kanye West, I mean, talk about, the athletes, we have to talk about the rappers and the people from the music industry as well.
I love to hear the give back. I love to hear the give back.
For his give back, so I 100%, I'm a Kanye fan, and so, I mean, I'm just all for it. I'm for the unity. I was very proud that they put their differences aside.
Who won?
Well, there is no winning. We won because Black people won, because it showed two people that do not like each other came together for a common cause. And that's what it's about for me, because I don't have to like you to, let's get things done. Let's go in here. This is the agenda at hand, and let's get it done.
Wow, that's powerful, Nicole.
We won because it was historical.
The greatest news in Black America is blackusa.news. I heard it's the hottest network on the web.
Hey.
You heard?
Yeah, you heard. Yeah, I heard.
Indianapolis, Miami's coming.
Oh, wow.
DC's jumping in, Northern Virginia. Got Oakland up there.
Boston's coming.
Boston. And don't forget, Mike, we trying to get your peoples from the continent back on here.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So Donnie, you're right, man. We better get it while we're here, because anyway, you know, it just hit me. I said, well, hey, Donnie's the boss. If he wants to go all night, as long as he's paying, I'm gonna be here all night. So Nicole looked like, you know, I don't know about that, but Donnie,
It's 7:29.
I know what time it is. So Donnie, you said that you had a positive message that you wanted to speak to. So we're going to let you close us out with that after my prayer, right? After my prayer. And if we run over 5 minutes, it's been a good 5 minutes. So here's a prayer for Kwanzaa, man. Lord, we come before you, committing our hearts to unity to each other through you. May you grant us loving hearts, forgiving spirits, and open minds to accept and treasure those that you have placed around us. May we find beauty in all your creation as we strive togetherness in every aspect of the community, from the deepest corners of the African diaspora to our own neighborhoods and siblings. May you bring us together. Amen. So that's our prayer for Kwanzaa. And Donnie Glover, close us out, man.
In my book, Unapologetically Black, I share a poem that I wrote well over 25 years ago. With blood from our ancestors flowing warmly in my veins, I withstand the winds of hatred. I overcome the pains, moving on and growing stronger in light of all these things. My dreams still relieve me. My heart forever sings. I am the Pharaoh and the prophet, the greatest king of all, my queen. She stands beside me. Always we stand tall. The Gold Coast is my homeland. Blessed is my place, for there isn't a single land that has never seen my face. I am black and I am beautiful, a child of Almighty God, fought as a true soldier against each and every god. I'm the son of the Madonna and the light of all the world, and my legacy remains for every boy and little girl. I've flown the skies and sailed the seas and built the pyramids to a T. I've taught medicine to those near and far and have flown in spaceships to the stars. The hands of time can never erase my ordained, appointed, and sacred place, for God is with me all the way. I am black and I am beautiful every day. Ashe.
Fantastic. Well, viewers, thank you so much. Mr. Glover, thank you so much for appearing. Nicole, wonderful, excellent, as I expected. You know, you got to come back and visit. You know, Sister Biz every Wednesday at 7 o'clock with Tamar Brown, right? Did I say that right? Because I know I didn't get
It's Tamada.
Tamada Brown, right? Tamada Brown and Nicole Orr on Wednesdays. You all have a wonderful new year, prosperity throughout. Thank you very much for viewing.